Hey there, are you grieving the potential loss of a loved one or feeling overwhelmed with the loss of someone you care about? If so, you're in the right place. Lisa Hartung here, and this podcast is designed to guide you through topics surrounding death and dying. We'll dive into multifaceted aspects of grief, offering you a blend of personal stories, expert insights, and practical advice for your grief journey. May this be a safe space for you to learn, listen, and ask questions about your own life and loved ones. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Giving Grief Grace. We are at week 3 of a mini series with Ian McCartor of the Ash Rose Foundation. I am going through a 30-day Ash Rose project, which is where I send my mom's ashes to Ian, and then Ian and I talk every single week about the journey through grief, and each week is a different theme. So this week is finding meaning in the present, and we talked about the past and how to move creatively through our emotions in the first and second week, and now we're finding meaning. So I'm super excited for you to be on this journey with us and to have Ian with us back again for another week. I was just chatting with Ian before we started recording on how I sent Mom out to him this week, and I just heard my mom saying, I hope Ian brings me out in the garden. So painting on plein air was just something that my mom always did. And so, the art of creating, the artist becomes the art. It was just a fun divine download. So you can do whatever you want with Mom, Ian. I trust you.
Well, it's an honor. Truly, it is. But I'm sure there will be some plein air sketching in the gardens to soak that up for sure.
Yeah, that's fun. And we've planned the reveal on the first week of spring this spring, so that will be super fun to have a meaningful portrait reveal when we're done. So how we've been doing this is Ian will ask me questions. So each day we get a different question to ask and think about, and then I respond in a journal. And so Ian will walk us through this week's questions and I will answer them. So Ian, I will hand it on over to you.
Wonderful. Well, yeah. So week 3 is about tying the first 2 weeks into the present moment. And, just for the listeners, the first week is about the remembrance of that person that we've lost and really going to a more vulnerable emotional place that usually brings up a lot of different emotions, a lot of sadness, a lot of joy, a lot of longing, and that's all important. And so with that, moving into creative potential in the second week and like just exploring creative acts and the creative perspective through bringing something with you from the past into the present. And so this is a very nice week for coming into the moment and allowing these things to integrate in a way that brings hope and solidarity and really like starts coming together in your heart. And just as the art's being created as well, it's taking form. This is a culmination of some work that's been approached in the last couple of weeks. So we'll jump into the questions. And the focus in general is embracing the present moment and acknowledging the journey of transformation. So it's really trying to witness what's going on within and start assembling that clarity to the journey. So this question, how has this creative process changed the way you think about your mom?
It's been so much fun. And I say that because I feel like I've really been able to celebrate the highs, the joys, just her true and capture her true essence. I am a verbal processor, and so it's been helpful to journal and get the thoughts down on paper, but then also talk to you about them each week. And I think just grieving in general, it's really great when you can release the feelings through your words. So I've really enjoyed that. And it's like a fun meeting with her every time we get to to explore these different avenues. It's almost made me feel closer to her. We always talk about keep on telling stories about your loved one to keep them alive. It's just been another reminder to always think positive. And from a grieving standpoint, it's been so much more joyful for me. It was hard getting into it, right? You say that first week is really emotional, and I think the second week was too. But this week is cracking open the shell to new beginnings and a
Mm,
different stage of the grieving process. So,
wonderful. Yeah, the closeness is the goal. It's allowing all the things that felt painful and hard and sad to actually bring that intimacy and to bring everything into you and for nothing to be like, oh, I don't want to go there. That's too hard. Oh, that's way too bad. Or don't know what to do with that. It's like how to bring it all in and have it all be present and without resistance, to just be the witness to yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Reflect on a moment of beauty or peace you've experienced recently and what made it meaningful.
So my mom was a gardener. She had she had all of these plants, and they lived in Maine, and so in the wintertime, 8 months out of the year, the ground is frozen, or at least that's what it seems like. And so she would take some of her, fair weather plants, put them in pots, and then bring them home for the winter so they have a summer house in their winter house. And then some of the ones would not go fully in her garden. They would just sit on top of the soil and or around camp in some way. And so there was one hibiscus that mom used to bring from the summer house to the winter house and back. And my dad, mom was very clear in that she wanted my dad to take care of the plants when she passed. And
Mm.
so he's done such a good job. He even does the window boxes and makes sure that her geraniums, are pulled in for the winter so they can lay dormant before they bloom again. And
Mm.
this one hibiscus mom had, and dad's been doing such a great job keeping it alive. And this past week he sent my sister and I a picture of like, can you see the next bloom? And so now there are four blooms on the hibiscus plant. It was just so meaningful because it happened that I was journaling about this the same time that dad was like, hey girls, can you see this? Like, look at it. Mom's saying hello.
Mm.
So I think it's also helpful for him and meaningful for him because it seems that she is with him when the
Mm-hmm.
flowers bloom. And it's been very dark and snowy in Maine. And so a bright pink flower is so fun. Uh,
Mm.
yeah. So that was something that Blossom 3 and 4 came this week. And that was just
Beautiful.
meaningful, right? It's like that constant memory or presence, feeling of her presence with us, which is nice.
Yeah, well, that's just something that was so connected to what she loved to do. The gardening was her thing, and she's handed that baton forward as, your dad can be a steward of that love, of which she devoted so much of her time and attention to. And then the symbolism of the new blooms and just that cycle of life, what a hopeful thing.
Yeah. And right, it's also brings joy when you see a flower, it's just happy. Right? It's that happy, joyful, uplifting.
Alive,
Yeah.
beauty, all those wonderful things. And knowing that it's temporary, flowers don't last forever, but they'll lay dormant and then they'll bloom again. And there's that expectation of I have to enjoy this flower because it's only here for a little while.
Yeah. My mom always grew morning glories up the side of our camp.
Oh, nice.
And I would love getting up in the morning and seeing them unfurl and follow the sunlight and then,
Yeah.
you know, dormant at night and then wake back up in the morning. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Magical to see plants move and respond to nature, right? Like as a kid especially, you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what a beautiful thing to to make into a daily ritual, to watch the morning glories.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was fun to think
Yeah,
about.
I bet. Great. What role does creativity play in your healing process?
Oh my gosh. Well, art is therapy. And um, I think that anytime we can turn off our analytical brain and dive into the more emotional feeling as part of the brain, the creative part of the brain, it's like a breath of fresh air, right, for your mental well-being. And so I love, creating with my hands. You're creating beauty or just helping release thoughts from your mind. And it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily have to be art, but I like doing art or doing puzzles, right? Or dancing, right? It's movement. It lets the energy flow through your body. And I think that energy movement helps with the healing process. I'm looking at what I've written here of just spreading joy. I was always buying art supplies with mom, and that was one thing that when she was unable to move, we would sit and do art together.
Mm,
That creative, I don't think as adults we play enough. So it's like, how can you build 10 minutes of play into your day? And that could be dancing, right? You have a dance party before bed while you're brushing your teeth, or, maybe it's, we're in the week of Valentine's Day. And so we always used to create a love tree, which we'd go out and find a little twig outside with lots of branches and we'd make little hearts,
mm,
ornaments to put on it. So I do that with my daughter. And it's just that creative play is so much a part of the healing process because stress in your body can really affect your well-being and grief can be so overwhelming, right? When you
mhm,
don't want to get out of bed. And so being able to process through doing either movement or listening to music or doing art or even playing music, you're using the different part of your brain and just helping that energy flow through you.
mhm.
It's a new perspective, right? Too.
Yeah,
And it gets you out of your day to day of like when you do your job, your 9 to 5 or whatever. It's something new. It's exciting.
yeah, and it places you in a space of vulnerability, because when you're creating, you don't exactly know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That alone is so powerful to just be okay with not knowing the outcome of you stepping forward into something. And that takes faith. It's like the faith of a child to just create freely without fear of consequence or judgment. It's just like you can shut that part of your brain off that's so afraid of something going wrong or something only mattering if it's worth something that you can quantify or whatever. And you're not just doing it for your sake and for your expression's sake.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability, I think, is where the magic happens. That's where healing happens. And that's where surprises happen. And these beautiful little glimpses into the mystery of life can happen because we're not trying to grasp it, we're trying to celebrate it. And it's this beautiful communion with life when we attempt to create. And we become vessels of what life is trying to do through everything all the time. It doesn't want us to be stagnant and
Mm,
withdrawn and stuck. Life is in us to become and to become something beyond ourselves and to connect and intertwine and synergize with so many other elements of life for the sake of growth and good that I think there's so much in that related to the healing process that can just be so simple. And it can look like so many different things. And like you said, movement and connection, bringing words that are within to the outside. It could be anything. And I think when you just approach it like that freely, it takes a lot of that cultural pressure of being a creative person or like performing as a creative person. And I'm not creative because I never learned how to draw. Or I'm not a creative person because I can't sing. My parents told me I was tone deaf. And like all these little self narratives that
mm,
can pressure people down into thinking that they're not creative beings,
yeah.
where it's truly. You are of creation. You are creative. I stand by that. It's just tucked away or it's been smacked shut and it's been beaten down. But if we're alive, we can create.
Yes.
And I think we have to. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's our duty while we're living to create. We can't
Mm.
just consume. There's a difference. There's the shift in just the time you spend every day. It's a good little thing, I think, as an exercise to look at in general to be like, how much am I consuming and how much am I creating?
Ooh, I love that.
And it's easy to consume these days because, man, we got the resources to just veg out and look at a screen for
Mm-hmm.
hours and hours and hours and hours of our lives. And when you become a little more conscious to that, I think you can grieve so much better because you're not distracted
Mm-hmm.
and you're not just pouring into a vacuum, because the part of your heart wants to be fulfilled. And if you're just going to media to try and satisfy something with
Right.
dopamine, you're
Yep.
not really getting to the root of who you are and what your fibers meant to do and coming into your body and creating and healing. I think there's a lot there.
Yeah. And I think with creativity, you said you're vulnerable, but you're also present.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be
Mm-hmm.
scrolling when you have a paintbrush in your hand or you're doodling. Um,
Yeah, or where your attention's focused on getting something, bringing something forth instead of taking something in.
hmm hmm And even it doesn't have to be, I think, um, for type A grievers, you've got to have everything in a box and everything lined up. And I've got my 30 minutes to grieve. And
Right. And the alarm's set for the 29th
right.
minute,
It's like,
so I
okay,
can
don't
have a
do
minute to calm down and get back to my
anything.
life, gain my composure. Right.
Uh, and I think that there's more freedom in grief and expression, and that creative expression helps you move on and helps you live, right? It brings so much life to life. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
much life living to your day to day
Mm-hmm.
that we don't do enough, I think. I just thought about how neat would it be if you went to a funeral and or a celebration of life and you created something in honor of that person as a group. And so it was like a
Mm.
collective
Wow. Wow. That
engagement.
would be really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it was like everyone wrote a little something and it became like woven into a tapestry or like some kind of wreath or
Yeah.
frame or I don't know. That's interesting. I don't think I've heard about that. Like like a collective experience for people at a funeral to participate together as a
Yeah.
ritual.
Yeah. And
Mm.
that thought of you're creating, you're bringing new life to a situation
Mm-hmm.
instead of consuming. I love that little framework there, Ian. Yeah, so creativity is just such a blessing. And I like
Yeah.
that you said that we are all creative, even though maybe you don't think you are. I was just with some girlfriends, and one of them was like, I just need creativity in my life, and I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I was like, okay, well,
I
let's think about
That's a great thing to challenge. I don't have a creative bone in my body. If I had a dime for every time I heard somebody say that, I could buy a nicer car. It's a belief.
mm-hmm.
It's something we've chosen to believe for many reasons
Yeah.
to limit ourselves in those ways. And
Mm.
and usually it's because of someone else. It's because somebody told us you couldn't do it or you
Oh,
failed and you were ridiculed.
mhm.
And and there's so many moments like that in our stories that we have to listen to and challenge and be like, that was that person. That's not me.
Yeah.
And
For
when you
you.
hang around people that create and are positive, you are what you eat, and you spend time with the right communities and you'll be you'll benefit from that positivity and like what you've created with the podcast and building a community of people who are engaged with their healing journeys and are willing to give grief some grace and themselves some grace.
Mhm.
It's very important.
Giving it space. We can't just sweep it under the rug. It's perhaps our our parents may have grown up thinking.
Hmm. Yeah, if you suppress it, it'll still find a way to live. It finds a way to manifest,
Hmm.
because it is still a part of you and life.
Yeah.
And if you don't let grief live in a different way, it comes out in other ways, as sickness and,
Yeah, illness.
mental illness and all these things that could just rip you apart. But I think if, like you said, you give it room to breathe and you let it come to life and you intentionally bring it to life. I mean,
Cultivate.
that's a metaphor of what we're doing. It's letting the ash rise and it's
Mm,
giving that breath and that life to this grief to where it can be integrated again
yeah.
and depicted in a portrait and in so many stories and in so many metaphors that you keep in your pocket when you live day to day, that you are giving it room to
Mhm.
to come to life again. And it's a nice play on words, it's like coming back to life, and it's literally coming into life. It's coming back to your life.
Mhm.
And I love that little double meaning there because both are true when
Yeah.
you think about it.
And the process of grieving allows you to process. Life will never be the same, but
Hmm.
you do learn to live more fully, or at least in my experience, when processing grief and being able to be creative in that processing and in giving it space. So yeah, let's all create art.
Yeah,
And
let's all
whatever
just
that looks
create
like for
things,
you.
anything. Yeah, that's it. Well, and creating meaning. It's assembling meaning. Like the whole point of this week is integrating meaning into the present. And it's when you have this material and you haven't known what to do with it for so long that now you have some awareness of what it could possibly be. And I think learning from other people's examples is so powerful. And, just having people that have wanted to participate in this project get to see the examples of people that have gone before them, creating clarity and then reflecting on that personally to be like, it's possible. I can create something new. I can find clarity through all this. It's discovering the meaning beyond the pain itself. And I don't know if we mentioned this in the last episode, but the difference between pain and suffering, it's like pain without meaning is suffering.
Mm,
But pain can be experienced with purpose. And there's wonderful stories of people going through the worst of life with a perspective of purpose that allowed them to transcend the pain without having to suffer.
because there was purpose
Yeah, there was a higher
in
vision.
through that life with purpose. Mm, hmm.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. What are some ways you've been able to honor your mama in your day-to-day life?
Well, we talk a lot about this. I have plants on my windowsill. Think of mom whenever I see the plants. Got some orchids blooming right now, so that's fun. We always had spider plants, and every time they had babies, she would, cultivate them and then plant them and then give them. The library always knew that mom would have supply them for their plant sale with all of the different types of plants from her garden. So that was always fun. Playing solitaire, definitely communicate with her that way. And going for nature walks with the kids and listening to the birds and trying to identify them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we honor her. And creating art. So on her anniversary, her death anniversary, it's really hard. I've gone back and forth on like, well, shouldn't we just celebrate her birthday? Because that's so much of a joyful day, whereas her death anniversary is kind of depressing. And do we want to give it space? But what I've done in the past couple years is I've created art on her death anniversary and had ice cream and gone for ideally creating art in nature and then
Mm.
going to get ice cream. So those are things that's just a fun way to honor her. And eating chocolate and sweets and laughing. So,
What
oh,
a great list.
I know. Daily chocolate, don't forget that.
Hey, you'll live 150 eating daily chocolate, right? Keep your soul happy, healthy.
Yeah. So. definitely do a lot of honoring my mom,
Mm.
perhaps more so than the normal person. And people might be like, "All right, Lisa, we're done with you processing your mom's been gone for a little while now." But I think it's important. So
Mm. Well, then you can say, no, mom's not gone.
she's here.
Right. You
Yeah.
can live in that reality where that person you love is completely gone. You know, it's a sad reality. We invite you to try this one out where you can keep
Yeah.
these people so close with how you live, and people can get very uncomfortable with that because it's too much presence and it's too
Mm.
much unprocessed pain that's challenging
Mm.
and too many reminders that they don't know what to do with. And it's scary. And that's a difficult way to move through your day to day because it's always keeping things
Yeah.
away.
At arm's length. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think
Welcome
just it's a
in.
wonderful example to see that communion
Yeah.
and
Bring
the
it
grace of living with that every day and to be like, yeah, it still hurts and I'm sad
in.
and
Yeah.
I miss that person always, but I hold them close every single day in all these ways and it's a dance with that person
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful beacon because again, it shows a different type of reality that you can step into.
Yeah, it's sharing their light and love and not dwelling on the hard parts, but acknowledging that, there is sadness, but we can honor
Mm.
them in a really special way, in a meaningful way, and it doesn't have to be big. It's just something small. It's always fun to hear how different people honor their loved ones
Hmm.
and
I
how they
love
show
it.
up for them.
Yep, many different ways. Favorite ice cream flavor? What was your mom's favorite ice cream flavor? I'm curious if
Oh
she
my
had one.
gosh, she loved moose tracks.
Okay. Ben
Um,
and Jerry's? Or is that just no, that's just a general flavor with like chocolate or
we in Maine we have
brownie.
Giffords,
Oh, Giffords.
which is
Okay.
like a family owned ice cream company. Yeah, Moose Tracks was always, I think, was it Denali Moose Tracks or something? She could do Rocky Road. I mean, she really never met an ice cream flavor that she didn't like.
I subscribe to that magazine also.
Yeah. And so, but there was always some sort of ice cream in the fridge whenever. And even her mom, and I don't know if I've told you this, but Grammy Doak, in her later years, she died a week before her 90th birthday, but mom and I would go and help with her grocery shopping. And on her list were potato chips and ice cream.
Mm,
And like those were the main, and donuts. She would eat Mrs. Dunster's donuts.
nice.
And you know what? Enjoy life. Enjoy. And she loved Captain Crunch. Um,
Mm,
and she had all of her normal, like all of her real teeth up until her last days. And she was healthy up until the end too. So, my mom was like, all right, well, it's all in our genes. So might as well just proliferate that. So now I'm like,
hmm.
okay, always have potato chips and ice cream.
Check, check. Your
You can have
doctor will
the
be
salty.
like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "I'm doing it right. That's what I'm doing."
Some people might be like, oh, you eat really healthy, you eat like a bird. I'm like, yeah, well, I also have junk food and enjoy that. I'm not one of those people that says, oh, I fully am aware that I'm addicted to sugar, but so was my mom, and we're just living that.
Riding that wave. Good. Good.
Yeah, you might as well enjoy it. My
That's a
health
great
teacher in
phrase.
high school was like, yeah, you can get the low sugar or the low fat, but it's not going to taste good. So you might as well make your calories count and enjoy them.
Mm. I love that as a motto. That just really stood out to me. You might as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's so good. I just want to like isolate that little motto there. I mean, that's like the deep root of a lot of spiritual traditions too. You might as well enjoy it. If you're in a prison cell, you might as well enjoy it. If you're name it. And it's like, huh, that's a big standard right there to
Yeah.
enjoy something otherwise that, you know.
If you're stuck, right? I think in grief,
Mm-hmm.
we get so stuck in it. And
Mm-hmm.
how can you enjoy grief and
Mm-hmm.
live in the process of
Mm-hmm.
walking through grief? So
Hmm.
it's hard to think about.
Finding the treasures. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Finding what's
So
beyond that
fulfilling.
veil of pain,
Hmm.
like what's hidden on the other side of sorrow and
Hmm. Love.
or grief itself is love, and if you can turn over the rock and see the other side of it, it's this, glowing geode of love, and you're just like, wow, if I hadn't pulled this out of the ground and see that it's the same thing, I never would have known, and I never
Yeah,
would have been able to appreciate this.
yeah,
And those are the gems, that people find along the way that, just have to believe that they're there, and then you'll step into finding them, and you won't just keep it away or keep it locked up.
yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful stuff. 19. How do you feel about the artwork taking form during this process? How does it represent your journey so far?
Mm. You know, it's just been fun to honor mom in this way and to feel her presence.
Mm.
And I think, I'm so excited to see what you and mom come up with.
Me too.
Yeah, and
Me
there's just
too.
such joy in this experience. And I think that, it just brings up I think that I'm picturing this artwork taking form, and again, it's all part of the grieving process, and you're adding different pieces and elements to it. There's so many layers, there's nuances, and there's fun little carrots or Easter eggs, I guess,
Easter
right?
eggs.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the fun part of it for me, at least, to think about that. And I'm sure you, as the creator, having that creative freedom and having all of the different images and stories and thoughts to go along with it. It's really fascinating. And so super excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah, well, it is fascinating. It always is. Each one of these pieces that have come from this work are just so unique and woven in with so many layers of context and symbolism and stories, and yeah, it's pretty surreal as it takes place. It's a very sacred process for me because
Yeah.
everything you're sharing is informing all of it and influencing how it's all coming together. And one little anything could change the entirety of the piece. I mean, that's the beauty of just putting it all out there. It's like you never know what's gonna inspire something.
Yeah.
And and that is a motto for life, you know.
You never know.
You
And
really
that's
don't. The
why,
ripple is incredible. Life's ripple effect.
yeah, is so, it can be so magical, right? You just have to be open to it
Yeah.
and open to pivoting or going down the journey and experimenting and
Yeah, going on the adventure, it's a creative adventure of life. You are being created as you move through each moment. And, when you can see it all as unfolding in that way, life is much more interesting and
Mhm.
exciting because it's like
Mhm.
you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what one moment's going to lead to the next moment. And this thing you bring out of you could, you know, lead to something completely unexpected.
Mhm.
And I love the metaphor of art because it is that stepping into the blank of the canvas and coming with ideas and coming with intention and coming with an openness that allows it to inform you of what it needs to be. We're actually working with somebody. We just started. I piggyback the Ash Rose participants. They overlap a little bit,
Yeah.
and the man who'd passed away, and I'll just share this metaphor because it just reminds me so much of this, and it just what a metaphor it is for everyone. He was a woodworker, and he would carve these beautiful pieces of furniture and art and little totems and stuff for his family that they all have with them now. He was an artist in his own right as well, which is very interesting that there's these little like each person there's always a connection to the next person, and I
Mm.
could tell you stories all day. But with this one, one of the daughters that we're working with, it's three people at once, the two daughters and the wife of the man who passed. They're all
Mm.
on the calls together. And we had talked about something like that, to where, this is a metaphor that they took with them, and she pulled out this little ballerina that was carved out of wood, and she said, "Dad told me that he saw a stick in the wood, and he said the ballerina wanted to get out, and all he did was carve the ballerina out, and then there she is. She escaped the stick." And it's like, how much of that is in us, where in every day we're looking at these moments of like what just wants to become,
Mm.
like what in me wants to be, and approaching it with that type of openness, I think, is just, it's such a beautiful way to live.
That's such a great visual to think, right? It's you never know what's around the corner, but you have these beautiful ideas and you try them out. You go
Yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Oh,
yep. And if you don't try, that idea is gonna die. It's just
there you
gonna,
go.
or it's gonna move along, and find somebody else that'll be brave enough to do something with it.
Yeah.
There's a really beautiful book, Big Magic, about the concept of ideas as entities, and like moments that come to you and want to be manifest in life through you. And
Mm.
if you're welcoming to it, and if you attempt to create from that space of inspiration, that idea is like, thank you, I'm alive again. And
I can
it's a
breathe.
really beautiful book, actually. And it just makes, I mean, from an artist who I engage with that, it makes a lot of sense. And that's where you kind of get these impulses of like, I don't know where that came from, but here it is. Or I don't know where that song came from, or this idea came from. It just moved in me, and here it is. It just kind of brings a little more clarity to that concept. And,
Mhm.
it's the mystery of it. It's the mystery of what we can't see
A
and what
divine
we bring
download.
through us. Yeah, like what you said, the divine download. That's powerful.
Yeah. So
And
the
all these
the
things,
big magic.
big magic. Yeah,
Magic.
Julia Cameron, I think, is
Oh,
the name
she's
of the
great.
author. Yeah, I'm excited to get some ice cream and go sketching in the garden. I'll make
Yeah.
sure they have moose tracks. So, number 20, write about how this experience has helped you connect with your emotions, memories, or healing.
So for my emotions, I think I've gone deeper into the emotions than I have perhaps previously. And again, I referred in my journal to cracking the seed open, in
Hmm.
order for it to grow and sprout wings. And so I do this work on a weekly basis with individuals. And so doing it for myself has been, it's always a wonderful exercise to be able to stop and reflect. And I think it only helps you grow. And then from a memories perspective, I think I'm just, again, someone that just loves sharing memories and sharing stories and looking at the photographs that really keep my mom alive. It's part of the healing process and just celebrating, right? Celebration is so much a theme of this work,
Right.
celebrating the time we had together. And I think, again, going back to verbally processing the grief is really healing and sharing in community, right? And
Hmm.
so we have our conversations, but then it also sparks ideas or other conversations throughout the week with other people. And then you're able to look at one situation from a couple different perspectives by chatting about them, either themes or stories or anything,
Hmm.
anything like that. But again, I think we're all connected in some way. And so having these
Hmm.
conversations is important to talk about the different feelings and celebrate, right? We keep talking
Hmm.
about celebrating. So yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah, I think that our society would benefit more from gatherings that
mm,
allowed for these conversations. And we've done our best to contribute to that. Like the Death Cafe is a great environment
yeah,
that is just these informal, sometimes they're topical where they have prompts, and we've been a part of a lot of them where people just come to openly talk about their experiences and perspectives around death and dying, and love and loss, and life after.
yeah,
And we've done hybrid events of our own through the Ashros, where we have public galleries where people who've participated in the project everyone we've worked with is invited to come and bring their artwork of their loved one to hang alongside everyone else's. And so these spaces are incredible because
Mm.
just the presence of all these people coming with these sacred works. And then, we have it catered, there's music, we have time where people can talk and have conversations, and community people are involved, like community members are invited to just be witness to this creative possibility and this space where you can talk freely and you're not thought it's not a weird thing to bring up to talk about. It's completely welcomed, and
Mhm.
it's beneficial to allow that in those spaces. And just to have the artwork be these like icons or beacons that bring these conversations out. And we actually had one death cafe in LA at Death Doula LA. Really great space and community around this whole topic. And the prompt that we gave people were, when you die, what artwork would you want to become if you
Mm.
had to choose an image to depict your legacy or a message that you wanted to leave behind, what would that be? And the most beautiful things were coming out of people that they were just like, I've never thought about it, but you know, I'd be a dolphin and here's why. And like all these stories about, and my wife chose a garden, actually. That was her
Oh.
her theme. She was the only one in the whole thing that said a garden of beautiful flowers. I'm like, of course my wife would choose that. That's who she is. But then, these spaces for these types of conversations and that connection is really powerful. I'm excited for you to come to one of those someday.
Yes.
It's an amazing event. And just for people to meet each other, there's a different energy when people meet each other at these events and see each other's art, to be like, wow, I see you clearly. I see something about you already, and it's already that connection and that bridge that just encourages more of that. It encourages more of the expression and the storytelling. And what does that mean? Like, what does the flower represent? Or what's that little, the coffee cup that he's holding? What is that? And then all these, just it's so beautiful just how alive those spaces are with stories.
Mhm. Yeah, alive with life and
Hmm.
living and sharing of the stories. And
Right.
right, I think we had said if walls could talk, and how cool is it that our loved ones are able to speak through the artwork, through you and
Hmm.
through the artwork.
Yeah.
Um, I think that is such a gift.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
Mhm.
It's a blessing to be a part of, to just facilitate this,
Yeah,
because there
and
are countless stories. Just it's mind-boggling, like a picture says a thousand words, but one of these pieces of art can contain a thousand pictures that all speak to a thousand words. It's like compounding that with combining all these elements of someone's legacy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you want your legacy to be? And I love that, asking listeners what would they want their portrait to be, right?
Yeah.
What picture, what imagery would you want on your Ash Rose portrait?
Hmm.
Very cool.
Interesting meditation, right? Get you thinking. Get you really thinking, what am I going to leave behind?
Yeah, what's
Am
your
I even
legacy?
thinking about that? It's a good thing to challenge yourself with, like, what am I leaving behind in every day,
Hmm.
even now? Because it's all part of the full picture. It's all, the more intention, the better.
Yeah. I love the intentionality of it, right?
Yeah.
And, if you're listening to this and saying, I don't know what my legacy would be, you can start today
Hmm.
thinking about it. We get the choice to make each day unique and exciting and something different. So the possibilities are endless.
Endless. That's right. Just like creative possibility, there are no boundaries
Yeah.
or limitations.
Hmm.
Wonderful. Well, that ties us well into our last question of this week. What does healing look like for you today? How
Mm.
has that vision changed since your mother's passing?
Yeah, today, when mom first passed, I was really in survival mode and just trying to get through the day. The first year was a lot of anticipatory grief. Each holiday or juncture or like something that brought up something of her, it was just hard, difficult to move through. And I say I still struggle with the holidays, and I think everyone does, regardless of how long it's been since their loved one has passed.
Hmm.
But today, I'm able to tell her story. I'm able to spread joy. I'm able to spread kindness like confetti. It's
Mm,
how do I serve? Her passing has given me purpose, a new purpose, right? Of helping others on their grief journey. And that has helped my processing with the grief. And I always keep going back to when mom said, "You'll do great things once I'm gone."
mm,
What does that mean, mom?
mm.
I don't know, but
Can mean so many things, right? It
I ask
has.
her to show me the way, and say,
Yeah.
"Okay, mom, great. Let's go do this." So I feel like I've got a cheerleader with me at all
Mm,
times. And so I definitely am trying to lead with light, right? And lead with love. That's kind of where I am on my grief journey right now.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, your mother's proud.
I
You're
hope
doing
so.
great things, kid.
I know.
Right.
What does that mean, Mom? But I think she'd just be super jazzed about this whole. I'm sure I know she is because, little peanut gallery is always talking. She's
Narrating the whole bit. I'm probably not going to have much to do with this artwork, honestly. I'm just going to be like, okay, okay, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
I'm very interested to see once she arrives at your doorstep if there's any pull. Yeah, that's interesting though, right? Because you sketch
Mm.
out the artwork as we're meeting, and then the ashes arrive. You sketched out the piece, and then the ashes arrive. And do you feel the presence of the loved ones as you are blending them into your artwork?
Yeah, absolutely. I think leading up to it, the presence is already there. It's
Mm,
through this that there's already the
yeah.
presence because there's so much richness to the sharing and to what you're investing your focus in as you're writing and reflecting and preparing and then processing and speaking to these things like it's already there. And then when the ashes come to me, it's prepared and it's like welcome, here we go, and it's just tying those impressions together. And
Mm.
I guess, yeah, you could say it's a new kind of impressionism.
Mm.
Because there are a lot of impressions that come through that are unseen that influence the creation of the work, of course. And yeah, it's a very sacred experience to commune like this and commune and create
Yeah.
for the greater good. It's creating these beacons of clarity and beauty
Mm. Yeah.
from such a challenging place. It's just the balance of the scales. It's like taking all of the heaviest, hardest, most painful elements that life can throw at you and choosing to create beauty and
Mm.
choosing to create masterfully and sharing freely and allowing that to inform the world around you.
Mm.
So yes, in an answer, yes. Yeah, you definitely feel it. And it's thanks to you. It's thanks to the people that love these people whose
Yeah.
ashes I receive. Otherwise, it's just dust.
Hmm.
If there's no story and if there's no connection and if there's no love, then it is just carbon dust. But the meaning that's assigned to it through all this work
Yeah.
is what makes it come alive, and that's
Mm.
what rises.
Yeah. That's such a special time, and such a wonderful experience in a way to, as you said, create a beacon, a
Hmm.
legacy of our loved ones. Ah, well, thank you so much for such a wonderful experience, Ian. I'm excited for listeners to hear this and to think about perhaps doing something, with their loved one on this journey. So, what are we looking for? We're closing in on our next week, and the
That's
theme for
right.
next week is, or our final week together.
Hmm. Looking toward the future.
Mm, yeah.
It's a special week, and I like how you painted the picture of how this week was the cracking open of the seed, and week one can maybe be the dormant. It's tilling the soil, it's creating the space to place the seed. And that's the hard one, it's getting into the roots of everything and clearing the space. And then week two, with the creative purpose through all this, is the planting of the seed. And this week was the cracking open of the seed.
Yeah.
And now the last week is the blooming
Oh.
and the growth towards the bloom. And that's where the movement into light begins. This is the steps of like how to integrate this further into daily life and allow tying all these pieces together be cemented in where when you receive the artwork, it just comes to life because all of that's in that artwork. And holding that with you and bringing that as an offering
Mm.
to your mother and to life, to your life. That's the intention.
Such a beautiful process and experience. So, thank you again for tying it all together and being open and providing the space for coming along and being on the podcast and
Of course, yeah.
willing
I
to
mean, it's
share
all
it.
part of the the story, the weaving of the story. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being willing and for sharing it with your people. It's
Yeah.
it's special.
And then if any listeners want to go check it out, you can go to theashrose.org.
Correct.
I link it in every show note, so that's also helpful. You can see other people and what portraits have come and other people's stories. I think it's really unique to learn, and everyone has a unique story. And so that's the really cool part about it, which is why I want you to make an Ash Rose book.
Hmm.
Once you've got like I just think that's really cool to have the picture and then the story of the loved one or the family. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's a goal for sure. I'd like to do one every year with everybody who's participated. Since we do one person a month, I think it'd
yeah.
be nice to have each year be a volume
Oh.
where people can just stand alongside each other in a different space,
Hmm.
in another form.
Love it. Oh, well, thank you so much, Ian, for your time. And I hope that you have a great week. And I'm looking forward to our week 4 of blooming, bringing in the spring.
Yes, looking forward to it. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thanks. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Giving Grief Grace. If you found the content interesting and think it could help a friend or a loved one, please share it with them. Subscribe to this podcast and get a weekly dose of positivity. And while you're at it, please leave a review. If you've lost a loved one and are looking for support in an online community, consider joining our free private Facebook group, Giving Grief Grace. May you be kind to yourself in the week ahead and give yourself grace. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.